when everything was lost. No army, no capital, no hope. Who dares to start a war for independence? Close your eyes and let us travel back to the late 19th century, to Thessaloniki. There were the narrow streets of the Ottoman Empire, stone-paved roads, Jewish quarters, Greek churches, and Turkish mosques. In the Koçakasım neighborhood there stood a pink wooden three-story house. In the winter of 1881, a child was born there. His name was Mustafa. His father was Ali Riza Effendi, and his mother was Zubayde Hanım. Small but very intelligent, Mustafa first attended the neighborhood school and then the Şemsi Efendi School, a secular and modern institution. There, his mathematics teacher gave him the name Kemal, meaning perfection, and from then on he was known as Mustafa Kemal. At the age of 12, he entered military school because he desired military uniform and discipline. Although his mother did not want this, she accepted it. Always successful at school, Mustafa went on to the Manastır Military High School, and later, in 1899, he began his studies at the Military Academy in Istanbul. Istanbul was a large and crowded city where Sultan Abdülhamid's intelligence network, informants, and secret police made speaking freely extremely dangerous. Young officers met secretly and founded the Fatherland and Freedom Society because the empire was steadily decaying and reforms and a constitution were needed. In 1905, Mustafa Kemal graduated as a staff captain and was appointed to the Fifth Army in Damascus, where he also founded a secret organization called the Fatherland Society. In 1908, however, the second constitutional era was proclaimed, Parliament was opened, and a sense of freedom began. But this atmosphere did not last long because in 1909 the March 31st incident occurred and was suppressed. Then came the Balkan Wars of 1912 to 1913, during which the Ottoman Empire was defeated and territories, including Thessaloniki, began to be lost. The city where Mustafa Kemal was born now belonged to the Greeks. In 1914, the First World War began, and the Ottoman Empire entered the war on the side of Germany. In 1915, British and French fleets arrived at Çanakkale, aiming to pass through the strait and capture Istanbul. On March 18th, the naval battle began, and Ottoman mines sank British ships. 3 ships were sunk, and the fleet withdrew. However, on April 25th, they returned and launched a land invasion. Anzac, Australian, New Zealand, British, and French soldiers landed on Turkish soil. Mustafa Kemal was there for defense as a lieutenant colonel and commander of the 19th Division. On the morning of the April 25th, before sunrise, an order arrived saying, "The enemy has landed at Arıburnu," and Mustafa Kemal ran with his soldiers to Konkbayırı, where he saw the Anzac troops climbing the hills below. His soldiers were exhausted and out of ammunition, but Mustafa Kemal ordered, "I am not ordering you to attack. I am ordering you to die. By the time we die, other forces and commanders will come and replace us." And the soldiers charged with bayonets, stopping the enemy and forcing them to retreat. They managed to hold the line, and at that moment Mustafa Kemal became not just a commander, but a leader. The soldiers began to love and trust him. The Battle of Çanakkale lasted for months with mud, lice, dysentery, and death in the trenches, hundreds dying every day, and a total of 250,000 Ottoman and 250,000 Allied soldiers perishing. 500,000 young men lost, the land soaked in blood, In January 1916, the Allied forces withdrew, and Çanakkale ended in an Ottoman victory, though at a very heavy cost, and Mustafa Kemal became known as the hero of Anafartalar. Yet the war did not end and continued in the east and south. In October 1918, the Armistice of Mondros was signed on October 30th. The Ottoman Empire was defeated. The war ended, and Istanbul was occupied. On November the 13th, 1918, British, French, and Italian ships once again entered the Bosphorus and landed their troops. The Ottoman government was helpless and weak, becoming a plaything of the occupying powers. Anatolia was being divided, the Treaty of Sèvres was being planned, and the Greeks landed in Izmir. On May 15, 1919, the people of Anatolia were in shock and despair. But at that very moment, on May 19, 1919, Mustafa Kemal landed in Samsun. Although his official duty was inspector of the Ninth Army, his true aim was to organize resistance and start the national struggle. From Samsun, he went to Havza, and then to Amasya, where the Amasya Circular was issued on June 22, 1919, declaring, "The integrity of the homeland and the independence of the nation are in danger," and calling for a Congress. Congresses were held in Erzurum and then in Sivas, where decisions were made that the homeland within national borders could not be divided, and that the nation would determine its own destiny. And Mustafa Kemal emerged as the leader with undeniable charisma, determination, and vision. In December 1919, he moved to Ankara because Istanbul was under occupation and the government was ineffective. Real power needed to be gathered in Ankara. On April 23, 1920, the Grand National Assembly opened in Ankara. Mustafa Kemal was elected president, and the War of Independence began. Battles were fought against Armenians in the east, the French in the south, and the Greeks in the west, with the Western Front being the most difficult due to the strength and British support of the Greek army. The Greek forces advanced deep into Anatolia. In January 1921, the First Battle of Inonu was fought and won by the Turkish army, followed by the Second Battle of Inonus in March 1921, also a victory. In July 1921, the Greeks launched a major offensive, occupying Afyonkarahisar, Kütahya, and Eskişehir, and the Turkish army withdrew east of the Sakarya River to establish a defensive line. Between August 23rd and September 13th, 1921, the Battle of Sakarya was fought for 22 days, with Mustafa Kemal personally present at the front as commander-in-chief, issuing the order, "There is no line of defense, only a surface of defense that surfaces the entire homeland," demanding the defense of every inch of land. Despite exhaustion and severe shortages, a great resistance was shown to prevent Ankara from falling, and eventually the Greek army retreated, resulting in the victory of Sakarya, after which Mustafa Kemal was given the title Ghazi and the rank of marshal. For about a year the army prepared. Weapons were gathered, the people were mobilized, women carried ammunition, and villagers supplied provisions. On August 26, 1922, the Great Offensive began, and the Turkish army advanced rapidly from Afyon, breaking through Greek lines. On August 30th, the Battle of Dumlupunir was fought, and the Greek army was destroyed, with the remaining units retreating toward Izmir. The Turkish army pursued them and Izmir was liberated on September 9th, 1922. On October 11th, 1922, the Armistice of Mudanya was signed, and the occupying forces left Anatolia. On November 1st, 1922, the Sultanate was abolished, legally ending the Ottoman dynasty, while the Caliphate remained symbolically with Abdülmecid Efendi. Subsequently, negotiations began in Lausanne, Switzerland, and after long and difficult talks, the Treaty of Lausanne was signed on July 24, 1923, recognizing Turkey's borders and sovereignty and abolishing capitulations. On October 29, 1923, the Republic was proclaimed, and Mustafa Kemal was elected the first president of the Republic of Turkey. After this, radical reforms were carried out. In 1924, the Caliphate was abolished and a secular state system was adopted. Education was unified with the law on the unification of education. In 1925, the Hat Law was enacted and dervish lodges and monasteries were closed. In 1926, the Turkish Civil Code was adopted, granting women equal rights. In 1928, the Latin alphabet was adopted and nation schools were opened. In 1934, the surname law was enacted, and Mustafa Kemal was given the surname Atatürk, and in the same year women were granted the right to vote and be elected. Industrial investments were made, railways were built, and Ankara became a modern capital. Due to his intense workload, Ataturk's health deteriorated. His liver cirrhosis progressed, and on the morning of November the 10th, 1938, at 9:05, he passed away at Dolmabahce Palace. The entire nation went into deep mourning. Millions were crying, because Ataturk was not only a leader, but a savior and a transformer. His body was brought to Ankara, temporarily placed in the Ethnography Museum and later transferred to Anıtkabir in 1953, where it rests today in a monumental mausoleum visited by millions every year. Ataturk's legacy lives on, and the secular, modern, independent Republic of Turkey still stands. Now sleep peacefully, let Ataturk's dream be with you, and forever rest in peace. Good night.